A man sits on a limestone ridge above the Sea of Galilee. Dirt dusts his sandals, but if you look closer at the cultural soil this was spoken into, at the raw edge of the language itself, you start to see something. It is power under absolute control. He is the trained war horse. He still has the capacity to shatter ribs, but he refuses to swing just because his ego is threatened. He waits for the reins to pull. He waits for the master's command. The one time he forgets this, the one time he lets the wild stallion take over, violently striking a rock in anger to satisfy his own frustration, it costs him the promised land. A warhorse that breaks command is a danger to the entire camp. The biblical definition of a meek man is a lethal weapon who has surrendered his right to react. But it is easy to admire a bridled horse in an ancient desert. It is entirely different. To face what this actually demands of us when we feel the sting of the whip in our own lives. We do not face Egyptian taskmasters with leather whips in our modern arenas. We face a relentless, exhausting barrage of daily provocations. You know exactly what this feels like. You feel it in the sudden heat rising in your neck when a coworker subtly undermines your intelligence. In a crowded conference room, you feel it sitting in the dark. The cold blue light of a phone screen illuminating your face. The fragile reading completely misses. Meekness is not the absence of power. It is the absolute mastery of it. As you read a message designed explicitly to make you look small, your jaw clenches. The adrenaline spikes in your chest. Your immediate, overwhelming instinct is to reach for your sword. In our world, that weapon is usually verbal. It is the razor-sharp email drafted in anger. Your finger hovering over the send button. It is the perfectly timed, sarcastic remark that cuts the other person down to size. It is the public retaliation that proves to the watching crowd that you are not someone to be trifled with. We have been completely conditioned by our culture to believe that striking back is the only way to maintain our dignity. We are terrified that if we leave a slight unanswered, if we do not immediately assert our dominance, we will simply be devoured by the loudest voices in the room. But look closely at what is actually happening in your mind during those moments of intense provocation. Retaliation is not a display of supreme strength. It is the panic of an unbridled ego. When you reflexively lash out, the very second you are insulted, you are not acting out of power. You are acting out of absolute, humiliating slavery to the person who just triggered you. They pulled a string, and you danced. They pushed a button, and you exploded. You are the wild horse thrashing wildly against the ropes. The real question of this beatitude isn't, are you harmless? It's this. What do you do with the sword in your hand, kicking at the dirt, burning massive amounts of energy simply because you lack a master? The world tells you that power is measured by how quickly you can silence your critics. The world insists that whoever controls the narrative wins the war. But the kingdom of heaven operates on an entirely inverted metric. To be PRAUS, to be genuinely meek, is to possess the immense capability to emotionally destroy the person sitting across the table, and to consciously choose to leave your weapon entirely sheathed. It is the profound freedom of no longer needing to prove to the room that you are strong. You absorb the insult. You let the tension hang in the cold air. You refuse to let someone else's insecurity dictate your response. You wait for the reins to pull, waiting for your master's command before you move a single muscle. But holding your fire in a tense meeting or a digital argument is only a shadow of the real challenge. To see the ultimate expression of this terrifying, bridled power, you have to watch what happens when the threat is not just a passing insult, but a brutal execution. Torches flare in the thick, gnarled branches of the olive grove. Smoke stings the eyes. The heavy clatter of iron and wood echoes in the cold night air as a temple guard marches up the dirt incline. They are carrying swords. They are carrying clubs. And the answer changes how you read everything Jesus ever did. He was not offering a bumper sticker for quiet people. They are breathing heavy in the dark, hunting for a rabbi. Judas steps forward. The kiss is planted. The tension snaps. Peter, terrified and running on pure adrenaline, reaches for his waist. He draws a heavy iron blade. He swings wildly in the flickering orange light, severing the ear of the high priest's servant. The wild horse is thrashing. Blood hits the dirt, but Jesus steps into the chaos. He touches the bleeding side of the man's head. The severed flesh heals. And then he looks at Peter, and he delivers the ultimate command of the bridled king. Put your sword back into its place. Jesus is standing inches away from the men who are going to torture him to death. He is fully aware of the leather whip waiting in the courtyard. He is fully aware of the iron spikes waiting on the hill, and he tells his followers to stand down. He reminds them of a terrifying reality. He says, "Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels, 72,000 celestial warriors?" One single syllable from his throat, one thought. That is all it would take to end it. The olive trees would splinter. The Roman cohort would be reduced to a smoking crater. The high priest would cease to exist. The sheer, unadulterated cosmic violence available to Jesus in this fraction of a second. He was diagnosing a human disease. We are a species addicted to reactivity. We snap back. We burn bridges. Is staggering to comprehend. He holds the very breath of his enemies in his lungs. But he does not call the army. He does not strike the earth. He does not let the fire fall. He holds his fire. He lets the guards step forward. He lets them wrap rough rope around his wrists, the coarse hemp biting into his skin. He lets them drag him down the hill toward the stone courtyard. This is not a victim caught in a trap. This is PRAUS in its purest, most devastating form. His silence is not a surrender to Rome. It is a surrender to the Father. He is the magnificent warhorse, fully capable of shattering the empire, choosing to stand perfectly still while the weapons clash inches from his face. He is drinking the cup. He is taking the bit. The men who dragged him away thought they had conquered him. The soldiers who drove the nails thought violence had won, just like it always wins. They thought the earth belonged to Rome, because Rome had the loudest voice and the sharpest steel. But they were about to discover who the earth actually belongs to. The maps of human history are entirely drawn in red ink. Trace your finger across any continent, across any century, and you will find the exact same pattern of aggressive expansion. A king raises an army. The army marches across a border. We swing blindly the moment we feel our ego threatened. We think loud means strong. The people sitting on that hillside thought the exact same thing. Bronze clashes. Stone cities burn. And the victor plants a flag in the scorched dirt, claiming the land as his own. We look at the crumbling marble statues of forgotten emperors wrapped in thick green vines, and we assume this is simply how the universe works. You fight for what is yours. You take what you can hold. But look at the specific verb Jesus uses in the second half of his impossible promise. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. He does not say the meek will conquer the earth. He does not say they will violently seize it, or brilliantly buy it, or successfully debate their way into ruling it. He uses the legal language of a family estate. An inheritance is not a territory you take by force. It is a gift you receive by right of birth. You do not fight for an inheritance. You do not strategize in a dark war room, arming yourself to the teeth to violently extract a deed from a grieving father. You simply stand in the room as a son or a daughter, completely secure in your identity, knowing that the estate has already been written into your name. This is the profound psychological shift of the bridled warhorse. When you truly believe that the God who spoke the cosmos into existence is going to hand you the renewed earth as a family inheritance, they knew what real power looked like in the first century. They had seen the blinding glare of sunlight on Roman shields marching through their streets. The anxiety of the present moment evaporates. You no longer have to push your way to the front of the line. You no longer need to verbally assassinate the coworker sitting across from you to protect your fragile square of influence. The frantic, exhausting need to defend your own honor dies the moment you realize who holds the deed to the land. We spend our lives operating like desperate mercenaries, exhausting our energy trying to secure our legacy, our reputation, and our financial borders. We swing at every perceived threat because we secretly believe we are orphans. We think that if we do not fiercely guard our own territory, no one else will. We measure our power by how quickly we can summon a defense, treating every conversation like a courtroom, where we must act as our own aggressively loud defense attorney. But the meek man has dropped his sword. He hears the metallic clatter of the iron blade hitting the stone floor, and he steps back. He knows the ultimate outcome is completely secure. He can absorb the loss of an argument. He can endure the sharp sting of a misunderstood reputation. He can watch the aggressive, ruthless people temporarily take the stage, because he knows the stage itself is temporary. The violent will take the crumbling empires. They had felt the heavy, wet sting of the centurion's whip. They knew, as an absolute, undeniable fact of life, that the earth belongs to the violent, but the bridled will outlast them all. And this brings us to the final, terrifyingly beautiful implication of what it means to actually live this out. A rabbi sat on a Galilean hillside and dismantled the ancient world's definition of power. A wild stallion thrashed in a Greek arena and became a weapon through absolute surrender. A prince struck down an Egyptian taskmaster and buried his unbridled anger in the burning sand. A general stood silent before a camp rebellion and let his maker defend his name. A fisherman swung a heavy iron blade in the dark and learned that human retaliation is nothing but panic. A savior refused to call down 72,000 angels and broke an empire by holding his fire. And that same king submitted his own wrists to the iron nails and purchased the very estate his people will inherit. Same word, same power. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the metallic clatter of Peter's sword hitting the dirt in the olive grove. The realization that Jesus looked at a man trying to aggressively defend him with violence and told him to put the weapon away. His command to stand down was not a moment of weakness. It was a demonstration of absolute supremacy. If you are in a season where you feel completely surrounded by loud, aggressive voices, and your jaw is constantly clenched, the land is taken by the loud, the ruthless, and the heavily armed. So when this peasant rabbi looks at a crowd of oppressed fishermen, if you are exhausted from trying to defend your reputation, fighting for your tiny square of influence, terrified that if you do not swing back, you will simply be erased from the room, you do not have to be the loudest voice anymore. You can step back. You can breathe. You can leave the blade in its scabbard. The inheritance is already in your name. If this shifted something in how you read the text, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who is exhausted from fighting their own battles. And please pray for us as we keep digging into these ancient words. And may the God who holds all the power of the cosmos in his hands, the God who allowed himself to be bound so that you could walk free, give you the profound, terrifying strength to leave your weapon entirely sheathed, overtaxed farmers, and angry zealots, and tells them that the meek will inherit the very dirt they are sitting on. It sounds like a bad joke. He is surrounded by a crowd that smells of salt water, unwashed wool, and quiet desperation. To understand why it was actually a revolution, you have to start with a single, deeply misunderstood word, a word that has been entirely stripped of its teeth by centuries of polite English translation. The secret is hiding in plain sight. But to find it, we have to temporarily leave this hillside and look at how the ancient world trained its most lethal weapons. Open a modern English dictionary. Run a finger down the thin, crinkling paper to the M section, and the tragedy of translation becomes immediately obvious. The definitions listed for the word meek are almost entirely negative. The modern lexicon defines it as quiet, gentle, and easily imposed upon. It is presented as synonymous with submissiveness. It is routinely described as lacking in spirit, lacking in force, lacking in courage. When the scholars of the 1611 King James Bible leaned over their heavy oak tables, dipping quills into iron gall ink to translate the Sermon on the Mount, the English word they chose carried a quiet nobility, In the 17th century, a meek person was someone who was patient under severe injury, someone who possessed a profound, tempered endurance. But languages do not stand still. Over 400 years, the English word slowly decayed, absorbing the cultural assumption that anyone who does not retaliate must simply lack the capacity to do so. He is not holding a scroll. He is not standing behind a carved wooden pulpit. He simply sits on the grass, opens his mouth. The rust of modern cynicism slowly ate away the iron of the word. Translation is not simply swapping one vocabulary word for another. It is an act of cultural negotiation. When we read Matthew 5-5 through the lens of modern English, we project our own modern insecurities directly onto the ancient text. We look at a world burning with conflict, corporate ladders climbed with sharp elbows, political arenas dominated by aggressive rhetoric, public squares built entirely on the currency of outrage, and we read, "Blessed are the meek," as a call to become a voluntary casualty. We assume that because we live in a world where the loudest voice wins the room, the ancient text must be advocating for a kind of spiritual surrender. We equate stillness with helplessness. We look at the word and we see a person who simply cannot fight back. But that is a profound linguistic accident. The word did not change its spelling. It lost its spine. The tragedy is that this linguistic decay has created a fractured understanding of what Jesus was actually demanding of his followers. The modern mind believes that if you do not swing back when provoked, you are merely waiting to be struck again. We have conflated submission with weakness, completely forgetting that submission without underlying power is just victimhood, and begins to dismantle the ancient world's definition of power. Sentence by sentence. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. The word Jesus actually spoke, and the word the gospel writers recorded on the parchment had absolutely nothing to do with being easily imposed upon. It was not a word historically associated with victims. It was not a word used to describe someone who cowers in the corner when the shouting starts or the stones are thrown. To find the actual weight of what Jesus was promising on that hillside, you have to bypass English entirely. You have to travel back a few centuries before the Roman Empire, cross the Mediterranean, and step into the dust of an ancient Greek training ground. Because the word Jesus chose was not originally a religious concept. It was a military term, and it was used to describe something massive, wild, and incredibly dangerous. Hooves strike the hard-packed dirt. Dust chokes the air. A wild stallion rears up against thick hemp ropes. Muscles ripple under sweat-slicked skin. Black eyes roll back in panic. Teeth flash in the dry heat. The animal thrashes wildly, kicking out with enough blunt force to shatter a man's ribs, violently fighting the trainers, pulling at its head. This is the ancient Greek world. The man watching this chaos from the edge of the arena is Xenophon. He is a soldier, a philosopher, and a master of cavalry. He watches these wild horses pulled from the mountains, and he knows a terrifying truth. Blessed are the merciful. It sounds like poetry. It sounds gentle. The crowd leans in, the wind coming off the lake, carrying his voice over the rocky incline. About ancient warfare. Raw power is an absolute liability. A wild horse on a battlefield will get a soldier killed. It panics at the metallic shriek of clashing bronze. It bucks when a spear grazes its flank. It breaks formation the moment it smells blood on the wind. It is strong, undeniably, but its strength is entirely useless because it lacks a master. In a tightly packed cavalry charge, an unbroken horse is far more dangerous to its own army than to the enemy line. So the animal must undergo a grueling, precise transformation. The Greek trainers begin the long process of breaking the horse. But that word gives us the wrong image. They do not starve the beast. They do not beat it into a limp submission. They do not crush its spirit until it becomes a lifeless, fearful creature. A fearful warhorse is a dead warhorse. Instead, they bridle it. They train it to respond to the slightest shift in the pressure of a rider's knee. They condition it to stand perfectly still while a wall of wooden shields, crashes together just inches from its nose. They teach it to charge directly into a line of iron-tipped spears without flinching, and to halt completely the instant the reins are pulled back. The training is not designed to extract the animal's immense power. It is designed to bring that power under absolute command. When the months of conditioning are finally finished, the animal emerges, fundamentally changed. But then he reaches the third statement. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Xenophon would write an entire manual on this exact process. The horse still possesses the sheer muscle mass to crush a human skull with a single kick. It still breathes fire. It is still a massive creature capable of terrible violence. But now, it will not step out of line. It will not strike unless commanded. It will not run unless the rider directs it. Its terrifying strength is now fully surrendered to the will of the one holding the reins. The ancient Greeks looked at this magnificent, disciplined weapon of war, and they gave it a title. They had a specific word for power that was fully sheathed and submitted to a higher authority. And it is the exact same word the Gospel of Matthew drops onto a quiet hillside in Galilee. Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. Jesus is looking at a crowd of people who have been completely crushed by the Roman war machine, and he tells them exactly who is going to take the world back. The word your English Bible translates as meek in that sentence is the Greek PRAUS. It appears 4 times in the Gospel of Matthew, and its historical range of meaning is stunning. In classical Greek literature, this was the exact adjective Xenophon and others used for the trained warhorse. PRAUS described a wild animal that had been conditioned to accept a bridle. It did not mean powerless. Most people hear that sentence today and picture a pushover. They imagine someone who keeps their head down, speaks in a whisper, and apologizes for existing. It meant power under absolute, disciplined control. It was raw strength that had been consciously submitted to the reins of a master. The noun form, prautes, was used by ancient writers to describe a soothing wind, or a medicine that breaks a fever rather than a poison, that burns the stomach. It described elements of nature that possessed immense, potentially destructive force, but were being carefully directed for a specific, life-giving purpose. If seeing the ancient grit hiding behind polite English translations is shifting how you read the text, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So Jesus takes this specific, muscular concept and drops it right into the center of his kingdom manifesto. He uses it again later in Matthew, chapter 11, verse 8 and 20. When he gives us the only direct description of his own internal emotional life, he says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle." He uses praus and lowly in heart. The man who can calm a raging sea with a single spoken command, the man who possesses the authority to call down legions of angels, describes himself using the exact vocabulary of a wild stallion submitted to the bit. That root changes everything. When Jesus says the meek will inherit the earth, he is not blessing the harmless. When we hear the word meek, we immediately think of a doormat. We assume Jesus is handing out the keys to the world. He is blessing the highly capable, dangerous people who have learned how to hold their fire. Praus is not a lack of capacity. It is a massive capacity that has been intentionally tamed. But this is not just a New Testament idea. To see what this kind of restrained power actually looks like in human skin, you have to look back at the man the Hebrew Scriptures explicitly name as the meekest person on the face of the earth. And his story involves an awful lot of blood. A whip cracks in the Egyptian sun. A Hebrew slave bleeds in the dirt. A prince steps out of the shadows. He does not negotiate. He does not ask questions. He strikes the Egyptian slave master dead. He drags the heavy, lifeless body and buries it in the burning desert sand. This is Moses. He is a man of immediate, lethal violence. He is the wild, unbridled stallion. He swings blindly at the first sign of injustice. 40 years pass in the quiet of the desert. He returns. He stands before the most powerful monarch on the planet. He stretches out a wooden staff. The river turns to blood. The sky goes black. A captive nation walks free. He leads millions through a brutal, unforgiving wilderness. He climbs a mountain, wrapped in deafening thunder and thick black smoke. He carries down heavy stone slabs cut by fire. He is a general to the people who are simply too fragile to survive in it. We think meekness is the absence of a spine. He is a lawgiver. He is the terrifying architect of Israel's freedom. Does this sound like a fragile man? Does this sound like a doormat? And yet, the book of Numbers drops a shocking sentence onto the page. In chapter 12, a rebellion erupts. It does not come from an enemy army. It comes from his own tent. His sister Miriam and his brother Aaron challenge his leadership. They publicly insult his wife. They demand his authority. They corner him in the middle of the camp. The tension hangs in the dry air. The crowd watches. They are waiting for the general to strike back. Moses has the political and physical power to crush them instantly. He commands the loyalty of a sprawling, heavily armed camp. He could execute his siblings for treason with a single gesture. Instead, he says nothing. He stands completely still in the dust. He refuses to retaliate. He lets God speak for him. And right in the middle of this standoff, in verse 3, the ancient narrator inserts a parenthesis. Now the man Moses was very meek, more than all people who were on the face of the earth. The Hebrew word used here is anav. It carries the exact same conceptual weight as the Greek PRAUS. Moses is not standing silent because he is terrified of his siblings. He is standing silent because he is finally bridled. He has spent 40 years being broken by the wilderness. His silence is not weakness.